Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and previously I got a chance to fully unbox an entire tower containing a full set of the brand new LEGO Spider-Verse CMF series, and now we're going to jump into an early in-depth review of every single figure. All the details, all the amazing dual molded details, the side printing on the legs and arms, the new molds, everything about the Spider-Verse CMF series right now. So let's jump into one of the most anticipated new collectible minifigure series of the year. Okay, so here is the brand new LEGO Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse CMF series. This is one of my most anticipated minifigure series of the entire year. I've been waiting for LEGO to finally cover the Spider-Verse movies, and for whatever reason, it took them until 2025 to actually make it happen. But without further ado, let's go ahead and open up these boxes. Now, this is a European exclusive tower, and what that means is that, in theory, it should contain the entire series. It's something they do in Europe, which I really wish they did in the US, where if you want the entire series, you don't have to get the blind boxes or scan the codes. You can just go ahead and buy a full tower and get the entire thing in one go. Unfortunately, LEGO has decided not to do that here in the US, and that's probably because they want to encourage people to just try to buy as much as possible to get the minifigures, and maybe just did some market testing and realized that Europeans maybe don't really have the patience to do that, but Americans are much more willing to go after blind boxes and spend their time just scanning barcodes. Whatever the reason is, this is technically a Europe exclusive box, but the minifigures will all be available starting September 1st. So let's go ahead and open them up. Now, the way the box works is you can kind of pull them out just like this, and you can see they kind of dispense out like here, and it is very, very exciting. I cannot wait to open these up because this is probably my most anticipated LEGO collectible minifigure series for a very long time. So here is, in theory, all 12 minifigures, and let's just go ahead and see what we get. So we're gonna just quickly take a look at the packaging here. You can see the minifigures up on the front. You've got a good assortment of characters, and on the back, this is kind of your standard box. I love the color scheme of kind of like that comic booky art style sort of thing that you can see on the top there with the purplish blue and then the orange up at the top. I just think that is a really good color scheme to get, and let's get opening. Here's a look at the complete Spider-Verse CMF series, and as you can see, pretty much every single character is a variant of Spider-Man, which is in one way good because obviously it is a minifigure series based around Spider-Man himself, but the other hand is that we are missing out on a lot of really important characters that I honestly don't even know if we're ever going to see in LEGO form, particularly many of the villains of the Spider-Verse movies. Still, I'm very happy with the selection. There's maybe only like 2 or 3 of these I would have swapped out for more memorable characters or villains, so all in all, I'm pretty happy with the spread. You have some of the most detailed minifigures we've ever gotten from LEGO, with dual molded components, printing on the side of the legs, printing on the side of the arms. Almost every single figure has at least one new mold. Some of them have multiple new molds included in the same bag, and that is very, very impressive. I'm honestly really excited to see where LEGO continues to push the boundaries of collectible minifigures, because I would say that from a technical perspective, these are some of the best we have ever gotten. Another really cool thing that pretty much every single figure in this series does is include a mask version of the character, and then also include a version of the character without their mask, so either an alternate hairpiece or an alternate headpiece. You can display them as their mask off variants or with the mask on, which means it actually makes sense to get duplicates of these characters because for certain ones, it radically changes the look. For instance, Spider-Gwen looks a little bit closer to what she would look like in the standard LEGO sets with the hood on and the mask, but with the hairpiece, it's a brand new hairpiece with a dual color tip, so they really do feel distinctly different when you actually have them displayed with the mask on versus off. We're going to start off here by taking a look at Miles Morales. Of course, he's the main character in the Spider-Verse movies, and it makes sense to begin with him, but funnily enough, he's actually one of the simpler figures in the series. They already released a Spider-Verse version of Miles Morales earlier this year in the first Spider-Verse set that we got, and that one was already pretty perfect. Of course, he was missing the printed legs, which thankfully do not have lightning details on them for the CMF, so you can choose to upgrade your older version, but they did introduce the new hairpiece in that pre-existing set, and while he does have a new head with slightly more mild alternate expressions, it definitely feels like a variant created just to make the CMF feel a little more distinct than the version in the set. It's cool to see his lightning powers depicted, but obviously there wasn't really much else you could do with the characters, so while I'm happy to get the detail on this figure, it certainly feels like the most superfluous out of all the characters. You had to include Miles in a Spider-Verse minifig series, but since he does come in another set where they pretty much did the headpiece and the head, hair, and torso basically perfectly, this is what they could come up with to just make him feel a little bit different. Moving on to Spider-Gwen, or Gwen Stacy here, I feel like this figure definitely is a much more significant improvement over the previous version, which pretty much just introduced one new torso piece, whereas this one has a brand new mask print. She has printing on the side of the arms, which looks absolutely fantastic, and the legs, best of all, are dual molded with printing on the side of the legs. I also love how she has this printed accessory showcasing her and Miles, and that hairpiece looks absolutely fantastic. Say that again. You can see the end of the pink hair tips, which just looks really good printed onto that piece, and the headpiece she has underneath is really good as well. It's printed with a signature gap in her teeth, which is very close to the animation, and the other side is smiling. It's slightly more generic, but both expressions really look like the character in the movie, and that's one thing that absolutely stands out about this figure to me, just the sheer accuracy to her design in the movie. I feel like a lot of that is also because she has just a little bit more of a unique character model that is easier to depict in LEGO form, like the gap in the teeth, and of course the hairstyle being very, very unique for this character in particular, but it certainly is one of my favorites in the entire series, and I honestly prefer to display her with the hair because it is a brand new piece created for the figure itself. Altogether, it's a major upgrade over the pre-existing one that we already got, so I'm very happy to get this in the CMF. Moving on from that, we have to take a look at Spider-Man 2099, aka Miguel O'Hara. We have gotten a Spider-Man 2099 figure before, but that one was significantly less detailed and more comics-based as opposed to this one, which is really fantastically done and greatly detailed based on the movie. He has his holographic assistant as the accessory, which looks good, and I love the expression they used for the alternate face. It feels very appropriately angry. The hairpiece looks really good for like that Oscar Isaac style of hair that they were able to put onto the animated model, and of course the printing on the side of the arms just looks really good as well. The only thing I think would have made this figure a little bit better is if they came up with some sort of a claw accessory. I think that one of the most memorable aspects of his character in the movies were that he kind of has his fingers end in these very sharp claws, and it's very exaggerated as he kind of lunges at Miles, and honestly, it probably was just too small of a detail that LEGO figured it didn't necessarily need an extra piece, but I would have loved to see a new claw element because I'm sure they could use that for a ton of other figures. I'm thinking of the ones that they use in like the LEGO Marvel and DC video games where it just makes total sense to recolor in different elements, and sadly they didn't do that. Otherwise though, love the way the cape is depicted. The transparent cape, which is holographic, looks really good, and overall it's just one of my favorite minifigures in the series due to how clean he is. Moving on from that, we have Peter B. Parker, as well as Mayday Parker the baby, and I think this minifigure is just alright. I think it's pretty cute. You have the dual molded legs, which are produced nicely, but honestly, this one just doesn't really stand out to me that much as opposed to some of the other characters. I think it obviously was a necessity to include him in this series, but it would have been good to at least get maybe an alternate head with the mask on as well. That being said, I do think the expressions on the face are just so unique and perfect for the character. It really does look like how he looks in the movie, so I definitely am a big fan of that. With the baby carrier on his front torso though, you can't even really tell this is supposed to be a Spider-Man variant because obviously the Spider-Man logo and suit is completely obscured by the baby carrier, so it definitely is maybe not one of the more interesting figures in the series, but it certainly is quite accurate to how he is depicted in the second movie, and I think it's alright for what it is. It's just not necessarily one of these standout characters because it kind of feels like this is just a slightly over-detailed LEGO City character. Moving on from that, though, we have what is probably my #1 favorite figure in this entire series, and I'm really curious if folks agree or disagree, and that is, of course, Hobie, aka Spider-Punk. Spider-Man from the UK is featuring dual molded legs with printing on the side of the legs, printing on the side of the arms, and a brand new mohawk element that goes over the mask. He also has a brand new hair element showcasing the very, very crazy and unkempt hair that he has in the animation, and while I definitely feel like the animated version of this character certainly has a bit of special sauce that is really hard to depict in physical minifigure form, he kind of looked like he was made of newspaper clippings and cutouts that you can't really accomplish as a physical toy, I really like LEGO's attempt to bring him as close to the animated counterpart as possible. Love the accessory with the guitar, those legs are just so well done and detailed, and overall, this is easily one of the most detailed CMFs we've ever gotten from LEGO. I honestly think Spider-Punk is up there among the best Marvel CMFs we've ever gotten, and I know a lot of people do agree with that. I've seen him being compared to some other previous favorites like Moon Knight and Captain America as the Falcon, and I really do think that this is up there with some of the greatest Marvel CMFs ever, just in terms of detail, and I absolutely cannot wait to see that Mohawk appear in other figures. Moving on from that, we have Pavitr Prabhakar, aka Spider-Man India, and I think this is, again, another really well done figure. He definitely was one of the standout characters from the second movie, and he is about as detailed as Spider-Punk. He's got the dual molded legs, the printing on the side of the legs, as well as printing on the side of the arm, and he actually has a bit of a bonus too with the spider cat included as an accessory, which they didn't need to do, but I'm really glad they threw him in with this character too. He does sport a brand new mold for his hairpiece, which just looks really good. I'm sure that's going to be used on all sorts of different figures, and I think the expression just works very well too. It's slightly more generic compared to some of the other characters that we've seen in this series, just kind of an angry expression and a smiling expression, but I think it actually works very well for the character, and I love just how unique this character's costume and design is. With the dark blue and kind of azure color scheme breaking up the red, it just feels very unique, but also very uniquely Spider-Man, and he very distinctly is representing the character from the movie. So altogether, I'm a big fan of this one. He certainly is one of the main characters from the movie, so I'm really glad they threw him in here, and let's move on to the next figure. Miles G. Morales here is the closest figure we get in this series to a villain, although if some of the leaked animations and storyboards are to be believed, I don't even know if necessarily we could call him a villain, maybe just a slightly different variation of Miles. Still, he is in his Prowler outfit here, and Prowler is typically a villain in the comics, and of course he was a villain in the first movie, so I'm really glad to at least get a little bit of villainous representation in this series. I think this figure is remarkably well produced. I love the triangular cape he's got, and the new hairpiece looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm sure that's going to be really useful for other characters as well. The dual molded arms with printing on the side of the arms look great, and he also has a record to spin as his accessory, which is really nicely done compared to how he looked in the movie. I love the way they depicted the mask for this figure, having it be some dual color piece where obviously it is pretty much just all black plastic, but it showcases the hairpiece on the back, and you can even see kind of on the sides where kind of the rest of his head goes, where I think that is just a really interestingly sculpted LEGO element, and not something you see every day. The lavender color for the suit also just looks really intimidating, and I'm a big fan of how they were able to pull it off, so altogether, this is one of the standout figures in the series, and I know I keep saying stuff like that, but genuinely so many of these figures are just so good, I really just have to give credit where it's due. Maybe the one thing is that it feels a bit strange for the darker color of the boots to completely be broken up as you rotate to the back, but obviously they're not supposed to be dual molded, he's supposed to just have one strap, so I think it was okay. Moving on from that, we have Spider-Byte here, and Spider-Byte, despite not necessarily being one of the most hyped figures of the series, I think is one of the most interestingly produced, and that's because she has satin transparent pink opalescent arms and legs, with printing on the arms and legs. She also has an alternate headpiece here where you can see the blue kind of face that she has with a hairpiece as well. Plus you can see what the mask looks like. It's a dual molded element in dark blue and that purple color, which I think looks really good. It's definitely one of the figures I would want to display more with the mask on. I just feel like she just feels more unique and distinct like that. But I do like how you do have different expressions for the headpiece here and a really nice printed holographic computer tile as well, showcasing maybe her shock when she realized that Miles might be being sent to the wrong universe. Altogether, I think that this is maybe one of these sleeper hit figures of the series because of the amount of detail and design on the legs and the transparent color scheme. It's just such a cool design for a character that feels a little bit holographic in the way they're done. She may not have been the most distinct or memorable character from the movie, but the minifigure is produced with just as much care, and I really like that. And then we can move on to some of the side or background characters introduced in the movies that were only on screen for a few seconds, but LEGO decided to make as minifigures. The Werewolf Spider-Man here is a great example of one of the best detailed figures in the series being just a random one-off throwaway character. I almost think it would kind of been funnier to include the Spider Cat in this one, because it's like a cat and a dog, and I feel like that definitely could have added a little bit more to this character given that he doesn't have an accessory, but altogether, I really do love the way it's been produced. You've got dual molded legs with printing on the side of the legs, printing on the side of the arms, and one dual molded arm as well to showcase the ripped and tattered Spider-Man outfit, so altogether, it's really cool. Sun Spider is another character that honestly is not one of the major standouts from the movie, but it's actually a really cool thing for a kid's Spider-Sona to have been put into the movie if you don't know the backstory behind it. LEGO City actually introduced the crutch piece earlier this year, but it's good to get it in a collectible minifigure, and I'm sure it's going to come in handy for all sorts of different characters, and strangely enough, LEGO has produced a backwards hat element for this character, where specifically the backwards hat is supposed to kind of make it look like it's tilted back on the head, which is really interesting that they made a brand new piece just for that. Otherwise though, it's not the most interesting design for the character itself. I think the legs are okay, but they certainly do just feel a little bit basic with the standard printing on the side of the arms as well. Not one of the more interesting characters to me, but I think it is still nice we got it depicted in LEGO form. Moving on from that, we have another character that I was really curious what they were going to do in LEGO form for this one, because that's Cyborg Spider-Woman, who honestly I feel like could have been closer to a big fig or maybe kind of like a mid-scale fig like they did with Axel and Nexo Knights, but the way they depicted it here is okay. I like the way the armor piece looks. I feel like that's going to be super useful for like steampunk or sci-fi designs. You've also got the dual molded legs and printing on one of the arms there, which looks really, really good. So altogether, while this minifigure is definitely not one of the more memorable characters, I feel like they just went all out on the design here, and it really goes to show just how much care LEGO put into making every single figure in the series, even if they aren't one of the main characters. Should LEGO have swapped out like all of these characters for villains from the first movie or some other characters like maybe the Cardboard Vulture from the Da Vinci universe, or Prowler from the first movie, or maybe even a Kingpin? Yeah, I think so. I think I would have definitely preferred to get more villains rather than these random Spider-Man variants, but honestly, given that we are very likely to get more Spider-Verse sets, and potentially we'd be seeing villains in there, and we're pretty unlikely to get minifigures based off of the random background Spider-Man characters again, I can kinda see why LEGO decided to take this chance to depict some characters they know they'll never make again. And finally, that brings us to Webslinger here. Webslinger was honestly one of the least interesting figures for me, but I've actually had a lot of people in the comments of my unboxing say that he was one of their favorites, and some friends of mine like Christo the Stud City have even stated that he's their favorite minifigure design. So honestly, it really goes to show that there's something in here pretty much for everybody if you just like Spider-Man in general. I do like a lot of the minifigure components here, like the pauldron looks good. The headpiece is the least interesting thing to me because it is literally just a standard Spider-Man mask, and the torso and legs don't exactly scream Spider-Man, but honestly, maybe that's a good thing. I can see you just easily swapping this character out, like swap out the head, and you can just totally have a standard Western character. So I think that does work in its favor, that it feels like a really nicely detailed, more classical Western character that we haven't really seen LEGO cover, and the pony recolored in the gray and brown with Spider-Man detailing on it definitely is a very funny inclusion for the accessory of this character. Altogether, this is certainly one of the best minifigure series of all time, but I definitely do feel that if you do not care about Spider-Man at all, this series offers basically nothing to you. Like, the Western figure offers the most to you, and I feel like maybe some of the hair pieces and the heads you can use in your own custom licensed figures, but it is so specific in the subject matter that unless you love Spider-Man and you really love the Spider-Verse movies, which thankfully I do, but if you don't, then I don't really feel like you're going to get a lot out of this series. It's a little bit different than the previous licensed series like maybe the D&D series or even the theme series for LEGO Space, where I feel like there was something for just other minifigure collectors to enjoy. These figures here are so specific, and coming off of the previous collectible series being F1, which also was very specific, I honestly feel like we are getting a little overloaded with licensed series. That being said, I cannot complain at all because I do absolutely love the designs here. As a fan of the Spider-Verse movies, I think I saw Across the Spider-Verse like 4 or 5 times in theaters with different groups of friends. This is a dream come true for me. But I understand that my opinion isn't necessarily the general public's, and I'm really curious how well these do. I think that definitely just looking at how before these have been released, any Walmart that puts them out gets immediately sold out of the figures. I am not worried at all for this series to perform well. I'm almost certain it's going to do really well, and I actually feel that that probably means that we are a lock for a 4th LEGO Marvel minifigure series sometime in the future. Honestly, I think that if they do one for 2027, they could absolutely go crazy with Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars and depict all of the different heroes and villains in a minifigure series and actually go all out on the detailing, maybe in a way that they would not be able to do with that many characters in standard LEGO sets. So honestly, I am very excited. I am very hopeful for the future of LEGO Marvel CMF series, and let me know in the future and in the comments what you think of this series. Which ones are your favorites? Which figures do you like or dislike? And are there any you would swap out for some other Spider-Verse characters? That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Thanks, and bye for now.